Hey guys, Steven here from Adolescence and welcome back to another video. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at my top 10 most complimented fragrances for the year of 2015. This is going to be both designer and niche fragrances. Now, I actually did a list last year, so if you would like to watch that, I'm going to leave an annotation here if you're watching on a device that supports annotations. If not, you can always click the link down below and check that video first and then come back to this one, and then we can see if any of the fragrances got dethroned or if we included any new fragrances into the list. So it's been a new year, new wave of compliments. I'm very excited to get this video across to you guys. Now, before I begin, there are a few things that I want to mention. The first thing that I want to mention is it's actually the man that makes the fragrances and not the other way around. So simply wearing one of these scents is not going to get you a compliment. You have to be in a good mood. You have to put yourself out there. You need to be social. You need to be friendly. You need to be inviting. All of that is going to give weight to somebody complimenting you. There have been many times when I wanted to go up to a girl and compliment her because she smelled so good, but she was either on her phone or she was busy doing something or she was engrossed in a task, and I said, you know what, let me not do it. Also, it really depends on where you wear these fragrances. I imagine it as having a really nice tie. So I want you to imagine you have a multicolored tie. Maybe it's made out of a really expensive type of a fabric or whatever. Maybe it's a really expensive brand name. You paid a lot of money for it, but if you're wearing it with a t-shirt, or if you don't know how to tie it properly, chances are somebody isn't going to compliment you on it. So it's all about wearing these fragrances properly, but also wearing them for the right occasions. The other thing that I want to mention is that the fragrances in this list are ranked according to their batting average. And what I mean by that is if I get maybe 10 compliments on a fragrance, but I've worn it in public 100 times, that fragrance is going to be lower on the list as opposed to a fragrance that I've gotten only 4 compliments on, but I've worn it in public 5 times. So of course that has a higher ratio, a higher percentage. So that fragrance is going to be ranked a little bit higher up in this list. So this is the format that it's going to follow. I'm going to tell you the most memorable compliments that I've received wearing the fragrance. Then I'm going to reveal the fragrance, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the fragrance. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the list. So the number 10 on my list is a fragrance that I've been wearing a lot to work, especially in the fall and in the winter, just because it sort of evokes that feeling. Now, there really is no one memorable compliment that I've received with this one. It's just usually my coworkers coming up to me and telling me, Mr. G, you smell really good, or are you wearing a cologne? It smells really good. I remember one time I was standing outside of my classroom, and the lady who was in the classroom adjacent to mine, we were both standing outside greeting our students, and she goes, Mr. G, are you wearing a cologne? And I turned to her and I go, yeah, I am. She goes, whatever you're wearing, it smells really good. The fragrance that I was wearing is CHEAPIES by Carolina Herrera. This one has leather and sugar. Those are the two most dominant notes. It's a sweet fragrance, but it has a sophisticated side to it too. Make sure you check it out. The next one, same thing. I wear this one a lot to work. Both students and teachers, co-workers have complimented me on this one, and it's always like, oh, you smell really good. What is that? Plus, this is a fragrance that I have recommended to the most amount of people, and all of them have went out there and bought it for their significant others. I always get a compliment on this one. And number 9 is Bleu de Chanel from the House of Chanel. This is a really nice grapefruit incense sort of a scent. It smells very sophisticated, very professional. It's also the most versatile designer scent in my entire collection, with the exception of one other one, but I need to test it a little bit more. Number 8 on my list is a fragrance that I used to wear in college. So I was wearing this to college one day, and I was studying for my post-colonial literature final exam. And I was in the 2nd floor of my school's library, and I was studying with one of my classmates. We were there for about an hour and a half. She did not say a single thing to me about the fragrance that I was wearing, but we were walking outside of the school when it was time to leave, and we were about to part at the front gate. And she goes, before you leave, I have to ask you, what is that cologne that you're wearing? So I told her what it was, and then she goes, okay, if I had a boyfriend, that's what I would want him to smell like. And the fragrance that I was wearing at the time is by Yves Saint Laurent, and it's called La Nuit de l'Homme. This fragrance is a very smooth, a little powdery, very sophisticated sort of a scent. It contains the note of cardamom, which is a spice, but it smells ultra seductive, and now there's an intense version that I would like to smell. So that was number 8 on my list. Let's take a look at number 7 on my list. All right, so this one, I was at TJ Maxx one day and I was buying a fragrance. That fragrance is called Brooks Brothers Black Fleece Red, I think. That's not the fragrance. That one I actually don't like at all. But I bought that fragrance. I was blind buying it. And then I go up to the counter and I'm getting ready to pay for it. And there was this petite, short, long-haired Latina working behind the counter. And she picks up the box and she starts smelling it. And I'm wondering to myself, what is she doing? So I question her and I go, is everything okay? And she goes, yeah, I think this leaked because I can smell a cologne or I can smell fragrance. And then I say, I think you might be smelling what I'm wearing at the moment. So I had sprayed a little bit on the back of my hand. I had her smell and she goes, oh my God, that smells so good. What is it? So she printed out some receipt paper. She actually wrote down what it was, and I can only hope that she went out there and she bought a bottle for herself. But I get a lot of compliments every single time I wear this one. This one is by Mancera and it's called Roses and Chocolate. That's exactly what you're going to get with this one. This is Valentine's Day in a bottle. You have the roses, you have the chocolate. It's very seductive. It's a little bit powdery, so it kind of smells like chocolate powder or cocoa powder. But nonetheless, what a fantastic scent. The only thing is you got to save it for the fall and winter. The next one in my collection has a super high batting average, and I haven't worn this one a lot in public, but every single time I've worn this one, I always get a compliment with it. As a matter of fact, I was wearing this to work one day, and my in-class support in my classroom, I saw that she wasn't moving around the class a lot, and she usually does. She helps the groups when they're doing small group instruction, and this one day, she was standing next to me the entire lesson, and at the end of the lesson, she comes up to me and she goes, Mr. G, if you're wondering why I wasn't helping, it's because I could not separate myself from you. You smell so good. And every single time I wear this one, I get compliments with it. It's not my favorite scent, but I can't deny the fact that I get so many compliments with it. It's by Paco Rabanne, and it's called Invictus. Now this one does smell a lot like another Paco Rabanne scent called 1 Million. This one has a lot of eugenol, which is basically found in bay leaf and clove, and it also has a lot of tonka bean, and it's a very sweet scent. So I think that's why people gravitate towards it, because it's so sweet. The next fragrance on my list is one that I've had, man, since I was in college, and I used to wear this one all throughout college. This was my signature scent back in the day, and I remember wearing this to work one day, and my coworker, this is back then when I worked at a hardware store, my coworker was getting ready to mix a gallon of paint right next to me, and I remember her turning to me and saying, are you wearing so-and-so fragrance? And I turned to her and I'm like, oh my God, yes I am. And I was so surprised at the fact that she was able to guess the fragrance that I was wearing. She goes, oh my God, that's my favorite scent. It smells so good. I used to buy it for my boyfriend every Christmas. And then that sort of negated the compliment. But again, this one, almost every time I wear it, I get a compliment on it. And this one is by Giorgio Armani, and it's called Acqua di Gio. So as long as you don't mind smelling like people's ex-boyfriends, you might actually really like this one. But it's a highly complimented scent, beautiful composition by Alberto Morillas, kind of floral and aquatic, very fresh, and gets a ton of compliments. Let's take a look at number 4 on my list. I was really surprised by this one because this is one of my most recent purchases. It is actually my most recent purchase. Now, with this one, I have gotten well over 10 compliments and I've worn it just a little bit over 10 days. So every single time I wear this one, yet again, I get a compliment. I remember the receptionist at my job complimented me on it. She goes, Mr. G, you smell really good. The other time I was in the teacher's lounge and another lady who was working in there, the lady who does payroll, she goes, Mr. G, you smell really good. I actually shook hands with another one of my coworkers, and those of you who follow my channel know that I always spray fragrances on the back of my hand. So I guess she went to shake my hand, and she sends me a text message that evening, and she goes, Mr. G, I don't know what fragrance you were wearing today, but I cannot stop smelling my fingers. I can still smell it on my fingers from when I shook your hand. The very same day that I bought this fragrance, I went to Old Navy and my cashier goes, I don't know what fragrance you're wearing, but it smells really good. And then the cashier to her right goes, yeah, is that you who's wearing that fragrance? I was walking up and down the aisle trying to figure out who it was because it smells so good. And then the cashier to her left goes, yeah, I smelled that too. It smells really good. This fragrance, I cannot even contextualize how many compliments I receive when I wear it. And this one is the newest release by Christian Dior, and it's called Sauvage. Now this fragrance gets a lot of hate. Hate on it all you want. It's my number 4 most complimented scent ever. Every single time I wear this, I get a compliment on it. It is almost guaranteed. My father-in-law wore it one day. He got a ton of compliments, and I just cannot stress how many compliments I get with this one. Getting into my number 3 scent, yet again, this is a fragrance I get a lot of compliments when I wear it to work. People always ask me what I'm wearing, but the most memorable compliment that I received when I wore this next one is when I was in New York City, and I was walking to New York so I can meet up with my good friend Freddie, and there was this really tall, attractive lady walking to my left, when all of a sudden I see her running. And it was so weird because she really didn't have a reason to start running in the middle of the sidewalk. So she starts running and she runs up to the lady who was in front of us. And she goes, "Excuse me, are you wearing perfume?" And the lady's like, "No." She goes, "You're not wearing Flower Bomb? You're not wearing perfume?" I don't know why she thought it was Flower Bomb, but the lady is like, "No, I'm not." And then I go up to her and I say, "Excuse me, I think you were smelling somebody's fragrance. I suspect it might be the one that I'm wearing." And I had her smell my hand and she goes, "Oh my God, it is the fragrance that you're wearing. What is that?" And I told her about it. I told her how much it cost. And I can only hope that, once again, that she went out there and she bought it. She was so entranced by this scent. And I always get a compliment when I wear this one. And this one is by a company called Profumum Roma. And it's called Batito Dali. This is a really nice incensey, coconut, sweet, chocolatey, African orange flower sort of a scent. Really mesmerizing. You've never smelled anything like it. I highly recommend you check this one out. My number 3 most complimented scent. Alright guys, let's get into the number 2. My number 2 most complimented scent is the one that I have gotten the second amount of most unsolicited compliments from. I was wearing it one day when I was going to pick up flowers for my fiance. I think it was our anniversary or something like that. And I went to the supermarket because there's usually this guy standing in front of the supermarket in the parking lot who sells dozen roses out of a shopping cart. And I show up there and he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, oh boy, you know, now I'm going to need to pay a high price for these flowers. And I go up to the security guard and I say, "Excuse me, do you know if the guy who sells the flowers was here today?" And he goes, "Yeah, you just missed him. He left like half an hour ago." And I'm like, oh, okay. And as I'm walking away, he goes, "But if you go inside this supermarket, you may be able to find some flowers in there." So I go, "All right, thank you." And he's like, "Before you leave, what is that cologne that you're wearing?" And I tell him what it is, and he wasn't going to remember the name, so he goes, "Do you mind writing it down for me?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." So he's checking his pockets to see if he has a pen or a pencil or anything like that. He can't procure one. So then he goes, "I'm sorry, but would you mind texting it to me?" So a perfect stranger is asking me to text him the name of my fragrance. That same night, I went to this restaurant right across the street from where we live. It's an Italian restaurant called Bon Appetit. We love going there. And we walk in and they sit us down right next to this middle-aged Hispanic couple. And I guess the man turns around and he goes, "Excuse me, what is that perfume that you're wearing?" And I tell him what it is, and he turns to his wife and he goes, "That's what I want for Christmas." And she pulls out a pen and paper, and I'm like, I can't believe this. Two times in the same day, people want me to write down or text them what fragrance I'm wearing. And I was wearing this on another day, and I was walking down past this auto body shop, and this guy goes, "Excuse me, are you wearing a cologne?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Do you mind writing this down for me?" So I'm walking inside his auto body shop and I'm telling him how much it costs. And then he goes, "You know what, never mind. I thought it was going to be cheaper than that." So I ended up not writing it down for him. But nonetheless, this one, you got to be careful with this one. This is a polarizing one, but you're going to get noticed. This one is by Xerjoff and it's called More Than Words. This is a sweet, rose, dried fruit, incense, very hypnotizing sort of a scent. That's it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But let's go ahead and get into my number 1. So those of you who are watching this list, either number 1 got dethroned and just totally left the list, or it retained its number 1 spot, and the latter is true. This one, every single time I wear it, just like these other fragrances, or at least the top 5, every time I wear it, I get compliments from it. I've worn this to work one day, and I had one of my coworkers come up to me and she goes, "You know what? I'll tell you a funny story. I was following the security guard around the other day because I thought he was wearing a cologne, and I followed him all the way up to the 2nd floor, and I asked him, 'Are you wearing a fragrance?' And he goes, 'No, I'm not.' And then that's when I concluded that it was you who was wearing the fragrance because you were the only other one that was in the hallway at the time." A different coworker came up to me on a different day, and she was walking right past me, and she goes, "Is that you who smells so good?" And I was trying to retain my modesty, so I was like, "I don't know, I hope so, maybe." And she continues walking past me. About 2 minutes later, she comes walking past me again, this time in the opposite direction. She walks right past me, and then she goes, "Wait a minute, that is you that smells so good. What are you wearing?" And I told her what it was, told her where she can buy it, and that was that. On a separate day, another coworker of mine comes up to me and she goes, "If I'm standing next to you all the time, don't think that I'm a creep or something like that. I just think you smell really good." And then on a separate day, that same coworker comes up to me and she goes, "The other day I was hanging out with one of my friends at my house and we were talking about how good I think you smell, and then my husband was there and he was like, 'Wait, so is that what you do at work all day? You just go around smelling other guys' colognes?'" And guys, I cannot stress this enough. This is the top most complimented scent in my entire collection. There are a few other compliments that I received, but in the interest of my wife, future wife, potentially watching this video, I'm not going to mention them. But if you've worn this scent and you haven't gotten a compliment, I'm sorry to say it, but you're probably doing something wrong. My #1 most complimented scent is by a company called Creed, and it's called Aventus. I have gotten compliments on this one. My brother has gotten compliments on this one. Every single time I wear it, somebody says something to me, and they've even gotten to the point where they want me to write it down and give them the website and exactly how much they should pay for it. And I know of a few people who have worn this on their wedding day after I've recommended it to them. So there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a little bit longer of a video, but I wanted to really get through what my top 10 most complimented fragrances were, and I wanted to share with you one of the most memorable compliments with each one. So if you own or have tried any of these fragrances, please let me know by leaving a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to rate and subscribe for future videos. So again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. This has been Stephen with another video from Redolessence. We'll see you soon.